Hi guys, my name is Vanessa Smedley and I am a painter. Today we are going to start a two-part series on the basics of watercolor. Just basic techniques that you need in order to move forward in watercolor. Things that I've been mentioning in my videos, but I haven't really given very much explanation for, so I apologize for that. You may or may not have known what the heck I was talking about. However, we are going to rectify that starting this week, and we're going to use at least a couple of weeks to go through the basic techniques of watercolor, like wet on wet, wet on dry, dry brushing, all that kind of fun stuff. So let's do this. Okay, so this is working with masking fluid. If you want to have white highlights in your paintings, a lot of times it is useful to use masking fluid, especially if you're using like a very blurry background and you have a very detailed subject. Sometimes I will use masking fluid to mask out the entire subject so that I can do the blurry background very easily, because otherwise if you're trying to paint around it, it'll dry on you, it'll get streaky. So using masking fluid is a good idea for that kind of thing. So here I have white and I have yellow, and we're going to do some little flowers on top of it. I've poured out a little bit of this Pebeo Drawing Gum, also known as masking fluid. Poured it into there, and this is Dawn dishwashing liquid mixed with some water. This is a very cheap craft brush, cheap as you can find. And you dip it into the solution first. That protects the bristles just a little bit. And then you dip it into here. And I'm going to make some little flowers over here. You can do this on top of paint, but just make sure it is dry. This is what I'm doing right here. Okay. Now I'm going to do a little stem as well, just for fun. All right. So now you just need to let that dry completely, and then come back and you can paint on top of it. In the meantime, you need to wash your brush as soon as possible, because if you leave it in there for very long, yes, this protects it, but only for so long. So you have to wash your brush immediately. So I'm gonna let that dry and go wash the brush. Okay, so this is dry now. You can tell by the fact that none comes off on your finger and the fact that it's a little bit tacky. I'm gonna take a mixture of Sap Green, and I am going to just cover up both of these. Because it doesn't really matter as far as like the color goes. We're just showing what the masking fluid does. And you just paint over the top of the masking fluid. Okay, now this is dry. I've done another dark wash on top of it because I just didn't like the wash that it had before, but we can go in and start taking off the masking fluid now, and you can either do that with your finger like this, which runs the risk of getting a little bit of your finger oil on the paper, which isn't always a great idea, or you can use one of these, which is a rubber cement eraser. Now I've had this one for a million years, 1.5 million and 10 years, but they're meant to be just square, but I've used the edges of these, so I've had them forever. They last forever and ever. So you take that and rub it along, and that takes it off really nicely as well. Actually, way easier. So that's nice. And then you can come and do the same thing on the white side. And you can see where the masking fluid was a little bit thinner. You can see some of the green coming through, and that's fine. It's just whatever preference you have. And so now I'm going to take a a little bit of orange. We're just gonna finish off that little flower just for fun. Just for giggles. I mean, maybe I should have left it alone. I don't know. So there's that. And that shows you what the difference is between whether you start out with a regular color underneath there or just preserving the white of the paper. It works well for either one of them, And, sometimes you can even splatter masking fluid like this, put it on your thing and then do it like that. And it will preserve like little white dots, like for sea spray or stars or something like that. So it's nice. You can use it for that. And that is masking fluid. Okay, so the next one is called Wet on Wet, and I use this all the time, especially for really out of focus backgrounds and for skies and stuff like that. So you take clean water and a nice flat brush or a hockey brush and you paint it across the entire area that you're gonna paint. Make sure that it's not just like got pools and pools of water, but sometimes I like to just let it soak in for a bit and then come back in and paint a little bit more on it to give you more drying time, which isn't necessary for this tiny little piece, so I'm just gonna go with what we have here. So you've got it wet, and then you just start dropping in whatever colors you're gonna use. It does need to be thicker color than you might do with just on a dry paper, because the wetness will make it diluted a little bit. So just start dropping in color. Let's say this is a really out of focus green background. Lots of greenery or something like that. Just different washes of what you're doing. Spread it around a little bit. Introduce different colors of green. That's really a natural green, but I didn't mix it first, so it's whatever. Add some brown into certain areas. And sometimes if it starts drying out on you too quickly, you can spray this with water, with a water bottle, and it will allow you to work a little bit longer as well. So I think that's fine, but you just let that spread, let it do its thing. In fact, I might even just spray it. You can see what that does. And that will diffuse and mix, and it'll come out with a really nice out of focus background. So that is Wet on Wet. Next one is Wet on Dry, and that is really just painting on dry paper. So I'm just gonna do like a nice little sky here real quick. Paint around, cloud areas. And then I want to come back in and soften some of these edges. And you can either do it like that, or you can layer color on top of like a dry color as well. Like a color that's already dry, and then you can paint on top of that, and that can also be considered wet on dry as well. But this is basically just painting any subject, and that is wet on dry. Okay, so the next one is layering. And for that, I already have a dried wash of magenta here on these 3 circles in this square. I'm going to show you what it looks like when you layer the same color on top of each other a couple of or 3 times, and then just a different color on the square to blend and make another color. Because you can, since watercolor is so transparent, you can blend colors on the paper. After they're already dry, you can come back in and do another wash of a different color, and it can change the color into something else. So I'm going to show you that. We're going to take magenta and we are going to do a wash over the inner parts of these circles. And that's what it looks like with 2 layers of the same color. And we will have to let that dry. In the meantime, I'm going to show you what it looks like when you layer Ultramarine Blue over the top of the other one. So if you have just a nice clean Ultramarine Blue and you layer it on top of this magenta, it comes out with a nice purple color. So in that way you can mix colors. We're going to let this dry again, and we will come back and do a 3rd layer on those circles in the middle part. And here we are doing the 3rd layer on this, and I'm just going to do it in that little center bit. It's a little too much water, but there you go. And you can keep doing that as long as you want to. Sometimes it starts to get overworked, especially if you scrub your brush back and forth a lot. That's where it starts to get that really overworked look. But as long as you just layer clear things on there, try not to disturb the paint underneath, you can keep layering. Or, you know, some people call that glazing. This is what they look like dry. I feel like that's kind of important for you to see, especially on the wet on wet one, because that will continue to diffuse until it's completely dry. That's what it looks like. And then this one over here with the layering is also important to see, and to see what color that one ends up being. So there they are, dry. And there you have it. You are now armed and dangerous with some of the knowledge that you need to move forward in watercolor. I hope you enjoyed watching that. I hope that it was at least just a little bit helpful for you. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share to your mama, share to your brother, share to your grandma, share to your second cousin twice removed, share to your lawn guy, share to your pedicurist, share to you. Yeah, okay. Anyways, you get the point. It really does help for this channel to grow. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.